everybody! George, Vinny, and I are here to start our next episode of Coming Up Milhouse. We are discussing Season 3, Episode 3. It's called Bart the Murderer. George, would you like to give a recap of the show?
Oh, I would love to, because this was a funny one. So it starts out with Bart having a really bad day. He wakes up all happy, but his day descends into chaos pretty quickly. So he has the dog eat his homework, and he gets late for the bus and has to walk in the rain to school, and he gets to school and bad things happen. But the worst thing that happens to Bart is he forgot his permission slip to go on the field trip to the chocolate factory, and all the other kids get to go, but Bart has to stay behind and lick envelopes with Principal Skinner. So not a very good day for Bart. So after school, he's heading home in the rain again. It starts raining, and he ends up accidentally stumbling across a club that just happens to be run by mobsters. And Bart ends up becoming a good fellow with the mobsters and Fat Tony.
Yep.
Get to meet Fat Tony in this one and talk about him. And some shenanigans ensue as Bart gets enamored in that lifestyle. And that's the basic plot of the episode. And an interesting thing about this I noticed was there was no standout subplot. And that tends to be the case with the last few episodes we've covered. There was an interesting subplot.
That's
but
true.
this whole episode focuses mostly on Bart and the mobster thing. So that was a notable thing I wanted to put out there. Let's do best lines. What is your favorite best line?
Of course, my favorite best line is Troy McClure, because I love Troy McClure.
Mm-hmm.
You may remember me from such films as Revenge of Abe Lincoln and The Wackiest Covered Wagon in the West.
Oh yeah, I remember such films. That sound good. I love it.
The Revenge of Abe Lincoln.
Revenge of Abe Lincoln.
hilarious.
I want to actually see that movie. Come on, let's have that.
That's fun.
Good one. All right. So my first favorite line is when Bart and the mobsters are watching an Itchy and Scratchy episode, and it's basically just Itchy just gunning down a bunch of cats
With his Tommy gun.
with a Tommy gun. That's all it is. And, at the end, the last cat gets a D he spells the end with the bullets, and the last cat gets a D on its chest. And they cut to the mobsters and Bart, and they're all laughing, and Fat Tony says, "It's funny because it's true." And I love it. That was great.
What about your second?
My second favorite line is a little bit later in the story. So Bart gets late for work at the gentleman's club, and Fat Tony's mad at him, but Bart blames Principal Skinner because Skinner kept him over school to write stuff on the chalkboard. So Fat Tony and a couple of his guys go over to give Skinner a talking to, and they walk into Skinner's office, and Skinner says, "I'm Principal Skinner, yes. And how, may I ask, did you make it past the hall monitor?"
Yeah.
So the idea that these tough guys walk in and Skinner thinks a hall monitor would have stopped them was funny to me.
I
So
know.
I picked that one.
And the secretary says, "Some large men to see you," which
Yep.
leads into that line.
Leads into
so
that
that's
line.
good.
That line is a very ironic. So, yeah.
My second line that I'm going to go with is Bart says to Santa's little helper, "You ate my homework. I didn't know dogs really did that." That was at the beginning of the episode.
Very early in the
He really
episode.
was having a bad day.
And the way he said it was like, "You ate my homework," and then he was like, "Huh."
I didn't know
That's
dogs
a
really
real
did
thing,
that.
because he's been using that line
Yep.
for all this time. So yeah, good line. I like that a lot. All right, what about best scene? You want to go first with that?
Sure. So at the beginning of the episode, George mentioned that Bart, the worst thing that happened in his day was he didn't have his permission slip to go to the chocolate factory. And that's really my favorite scene, the chocolate factory as a whole, because they walk in and there's a cocoa bean mascot and they're so excited to see him, and then at some point they're kicking him, which wasn't really, great, and all the kids are diving into the vats of chocolate and dropping things like their glasses in the chocolate and pens and things, and so they can grab it out and eat it. And one of the workers is like, "Oh, please, we have to keep it sanitary," and like everybody's swimming in the chocolate
Wendell
bags.
pops up out of the chocolate.
So that's my favorite scene in this episode.
Very good. Well, we are on the same wavelength because that is what I wrote
That's
here.
funny.
I wrote down kids running around in the chocolate factory, swimming in vats, kicking the mascot. That's how I wrote it here.
That's
Because,
funny.
you know, we've all been on field trips and, you know, it's funny to flip that script where, like, the adults have no control and the kids are just
Right.
running wild. That is a funny just take on something that we've all
Yep.
done. So, very good.
I've
I
never
liked it.
swam in a vat of chocolate, but yeah.
No, I mean, we've never got to do anything cool like that. That's what makes the
No.
thing hilarious.
Right.
So.
That's too funny.
All right, so we want to go to winners and losers. Which one do you want to do first, winners or losers?
Who's your winner?
I will give you my winner, and my winner is Skinner. Because as the episode unfolds, I already said how Fat Tony and his goons go in to give Skinner a hard time about Bart. And we find out in the episode that Skinner's missing, and the assumption is that Bart had the mobsters kill him, hence the title Bart the Murderer. We don't know where Skinner is. Well, it turns out that Skinner actually wasn't killed by the mobsters, but there's this whole thing about how he had a newspaper fall on him and he was stuck underneath it for days and couldn't get out, and he actually figured out a way to MacGyver his way out of it.
Yep.
But the reason why I actually picked him as a winner is because when Fat Tony and his goons come in to give him a hard time, he totally gets up in their faces, tells them to get out of here, just shuts them down, and they're like, "Okay, sorry, we just wanted to talk." And he pushes them mobsters right out of his door,
Sure.
man. And I'm like, dude, that's pretty cool. You're a tough guy. So I got to give Skinner the props for that one.
So funny that you say Skinner is your winner because he's also my
Ding,
winner.
ding, 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 ding.
I think that it's a really funny angle that he falls. All of his piles of newspaper fall and trap him, and he has to survive by dribbling a basketball for his sanity and trying to beat his dribble record and eating preserves. And then he MacGyvers his way out by somehow using trash as a rocket to connect to the vacuum cleaner cord around the beam in the garage, and then he grabs onto the vacuum cleaner and
Whisks him up in the...
saves himself. So he whisks himself out of the newspaper pile, and I just think it's funny that everybody thinks he's dead, but he's really not, and I just think he's a winner in this episode. Not only because of that, but he... at the beginning of the episode, when Bart misses the field trip, he's pretty much the only kid that misses that field trip. And so Skinner gives him something to do. And to Skinner, it's a really fun game to lick hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of envelopes for the PTA. And so he and Bart have some quality time, which I think is pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, not only did he save himself from the newspaper avalanche, but he stared down the mobsters, and he also found joy in envelopes. I mean, very good.
He's a pretty simple guy.
Yeah, good one. So what about your loser? Who was your loser?
So I went with Bart, and that seems like a pretty obvious choice for this episode, but he starts out with a bad day. Lisa's in the kitchen eating cereal, and he gets so excited. He goes into the cupboard, and the cereal names, pay attention to the cereal names when you watch this episode, because they are hilarious.
Funny.
And so he goes, and the first thing starts his day off wrong is he reaches into the box of cereal for the glow-in-the-dark police badge, and it's missing, and he blames Lisa, but Homer actually has it and wants to be Officer Homer. The dog ate his homework. He misses the bus. He doesn't have a permission slip. It's raining on him. He has to lick all of those envelopes. On his way home, it's raining again. His skateboard breaks, and that's how he ends up being with Fat Tony in the basement of the Gentlemen's Club. You know, the actual businessmen's Gentlemen's Club is the sign or something. And then he ends up going to jail briefly. So I think
and he
just
has to
had
go
a
on
rough day.
trial, and it was a rough episode for Bart.
And he also had this really wicked stress dream with zombie
Oh,
skinners,
yeah.
which was kind of my second favorite scene, to
That
be
was a good
honest with
scene,
you.
yeah.
But I feel like he's the loser of this episode.
I like it. You know me, when I go to pick winners and losers, sometimes I just like to pick the silliest off the wall one I can see. And so this time I picked the FBI. And that's because they're surveilling Bart's house, and they're in this panel truck that says pizza delivery, and they're parked outside Bart's house like for 2 weeks.
Yep.
And Marge notices, and she says to Homer, "How long does it take to deliver a pizza?" And the FBI's hearing this, and they're like, "Oh, they're on to us. We better get out of here." And they take the truck away, and they come back, and they've changed the sign on the truck, and it says "Flowers by Irene, FBI."
Yep.
And that's their way of getting past Marge. But then Marge looks out. She ain't fooled. She's like, "Mm." And it's funny to me because it's like the FBI can't get one over on Marge. And so for that reason, they lost the episode to me. So that's my take. Very good one. Funny episode.
It is a funny episode.
Yep, I enjoyed it. Any other thoughts on this one?
Just watch it and enjoy it because there are so many great lines in this. And as always, please feel free to share your favorite lines, favorite scenes, winners and losers in the comments below. And right underneath me over in this area, you will be able to subscribe if you'd like to subscribe and catch our episodes every week. And Vinny, as always, is helping us with this production.
Mm-hmm. He will be here sleeping on the table as usual.
Right.
All right, that's our episode for this week. Bart the Murderer will be coming back to you with some more soon. And until the next time,
Jiminy
Jiminy
Jillikers.
Jillikers.